guys, it's John Major again, and we're just talking today about survival basics. And one of the things you're going to want to focus on when you're preparing for emergencies is the rule of three. Basically, that's just explaining what your priorities should be in an emergency. You can live for about 3 minutes without air. You can go 3 hours in a bad environment where it's cold or extremely hot, anything like that. You can go 3 days without water. And obviously this is a rule of thumb. Some people go a little more or less than this. And then you have 3 weeks without food. But then you see a lot of people, when they actually get into emergencies, the very first things going through their minds are how to collect food and water and all that. And above all of these rules of three, if you can signal for rescue sooner, that's obviously your first priority, is to just basic sustenance of life. And secondly, you're going to want to get help as soon as you can. So basically, learning how to do traps and all that, that's a good thing. Doing snares, those are all good things. But if you're not getting the very basics of shelter building, fire building, water collection, those are your main priorities. Things you're going to focus on in your priorities is just being prepared in the first place. And that's going to be some of your own study on the subject. One of the basic things you should ever be thinking about is not going out into the wild by yourself. I don't know if you've heard of the famous wrestler Rulon Gardner. He won in the Olympics a while ago against the Russian Bear. I think that was about 6 years ago. Rulon Gardner got himself into emergency by riding a snowmobile off by himself, and he wrecked down into a river and was stuck in the water. I think he had a broken leg or something like that. Made it so that he couldn't leave the stream. He was kind of stuck right where he was at. I'm not sure if his machine rolled on him or something. But he couldn't move, and he spent the night in the water, caused gangrene on his toes, and he ended up losing his toes. Had he been with a buddy, that wouldn't have ever happened. Another situation like that is, I'm very involved with the scout program, and there was one of our scouts one time. His dad told him to go back to camp and get changed out of his clothes. I think he got wet when his dad didn't want him to get wet. So the dad sent him back to camp from where everyone was playing, and 10 minutes away was where the camp was, and he never made it to camp. And we assumed that he had hypothermia or something set in, and you get a little delirious and you're not at your best when you're in trying environments like that. And we never saw the kid again. I went out a year after that trying to find him. We never found a trace of him. So very important to always go out with a partner. One more story along those lines. In southern Utah, there was a situation where a man was going out bouldering, if you know what that is. Bouldering is, you're hiking through the boulders and you have to kind of leverage through them. It's similar to mountain hike climbing, but a little more on an incline, not a steep incline, but it's fairly steep in where you're climbing. And this guy was climbing through the boulders, and he accidentally shifted one of the boulders on top of his arm. When he did that, he began to wonder how he was going to get out, and he decided to wait as long as he could, stayed level-headed through it for about 3 days. And at the end of 3 days, he just couldn't stand it anymore, and he had to go to the extreme and cut off his own arm and take care of his own bleeding so that he could rush himself to safety. And he was able to hike himself out. So at one point he showed a lot of determination, which is definitely needed for survival. But again, it could have been avoided had he been telling people where he was going, where he was bouldering, and better yet, had he kept a buddy with him. So unless you're extremely experienced, obviously most people that get into trouble that way think they're experienced, but there's always the need for a partner. And so can't emphasize that enough. Just being prepared. Tell people where you're going to go, even with your buddy. You should be telling your wives, your girlfriends, your family, anybody. Tell them where you're going, And if you're going out snowshoeing, you tell them, hey, I'm going to be out till 4 o'clock. If I'm not back by 4, try calling me. If you can't get a hold of me by 6, go ahead and, give them some times when they know that, hey, this is the last point that he was not going to be here. And so if you're not going to be back by an exact certain time, then they know, hey, it's time to go and call search and rescue, So that can save you a lot.